fast-moving object the size of Manhattan is hurtling towards our solar system, and it will make its closest pass to Earth.
What if an interstellar object whirling through our solar system is actually a nuclear-powered spacecraft sent by aliens to test how humans respond?
The object known as 3I/Atlas has already stirred fascination since its discovery, being only the third confirmed interstellar visitor to traverse our solar system. For weeks, its trajectory was closely monitored, calculations refined, and predictions debated. Then came the moment that shifted the conversation entirely: the subtle but unmistakable change in its motion. Astronomers confirmed that 3I/Atlas had turned back, defying the expected outbound path, and instead altering course in a way that no one could casually dismiss. It was the confirmation of a fear that lingered at the edges of speculation. This was not simply a drifting relic from a distant star system obeying natural orbital mechanics. Something deliberate, or at least unnatural, appeared to be at play. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. When objects like this enter our solar system, the standard expectation is simple. They follow a hyperbolic trajectory, swinging past the sun and then accelerating outward again, never to return. This was the case with Oumuamua and 2I/Borisov, both of which departed into the void after their brief, silent visits. The turn of 3I/Atlas, however, shattered that quiet template. A deviation against gravitational predictions cannot be brushed off as a minor calculation error. The entire network of observatories had already been locked in on its path. The sudden redirection meant a force beyond solar gravity had acted upon it, and it had done so with precision. That was what tightened throats in observatories worldwide. A cosmic rock does not simply change its mind. The implications spread across every scientific and strategic circle. A turn suggests intention, and intention implies guidance. Was it an active system? Was it propelled by technology, perhaps harnessing radiation pressure, or a drive unknown to us? The questions poured forth faster than data could answer them. Analysts compared it to Oumuamua's anomalous acceleration, long debated as the result of either outgassing or something far less mundane. But 3I/Atlas did not just speed up, it changed course. That single maneuver carried with it the weight of 1,000 suspicions humanity had tried to suppress when facing earlier mysteries. The nature of interstellar objects has always been cloaked in enigma. They drift for eons between the stars, battered by radiation, scarred by collisions, wandering endlessly. Yet here was one that did not conform to that wandering role. To see it pivot back toward the inner system unsettled even the most skeptical minds. Telescopes captured the arc of its new path, bending away from the escape route and arcing into an angle that could not be reconciled with randomness. The turn was not wild. It was smooth, calculated, almost elegant. That was what confirmed the dread, that humanity might not be witnessing a passive interloper, but rather the deliberate behavior of something built. The scientific community strained to maintain composure, publishing cautious statements and urging restraint in conclusions. But the undercurrent of fear was impossible to mask. If this object was maneuvering, it meant an intelligence was involved, whether it was the remnant of a probe, an autonomous machine, or something entirely beyond current imagination. The leap from interstellar debris to interstellar craft was a step many had resisted for decades, dismissing speculation as sensationalism. Yet, with every update to its tracked trajectory, the resistance grew weaker. Denial could not stand against data. One of the most unsettling aspects was the silence. No signal, no detectable transmission, no beacon emanated from 3I/Atlas. If it were technological, it was not announcing itself. That silence left a vacuum filled with unease. The fear was not only that it turned back, but that it did so wordlessly. Silence implies secrecy, or perhaps indifference. Both are equally chilling when the subject is a foreign visitor capable of controlling its course within our solar system. The confirmation of its change in direction was enough to spread ripples far beyond the scientific world, into governments, militaries, and even the general public once news seeped out. The turn itself invites questions not just of how, but of why. What compels an object, if object is even the right word, to return inward, rather than continue its voyage into interstellar space? If it were a probe, perhaps it detected something of interest here. Perhaps it sought further study of our system, or perhaps it responded to a signal we did not detect. The frightening possibility is that it has goals, and goals imply plans. Humans are used to being the ones observing, cataloging, and probing. To be on the other end of that equation transforms the dynamic entirely. The confirmation also reignited debates about how prepared humanity truly is for encounters with something not of Earth. Agencies have contingency plans for asteroids, for natural disasters, for hostile actions between nations, but none are fully equipped for an interstellar visitor with apparent self-determination. The realization that something beyond chance and gravity was dictating 3I/Atlas's motion forced uncomfortable discussions. What if it comes closer? What if it is surveying? What if this is not the first time, only the first we've noticed? Those are questions that suddenly leapt from speculative forums into closed-door briefings. Observers noted that the turn occurred without any visible expulsion of gas or debris. Comets vent when they adjust paths due to solar heating. Asteroids tumble without consistency. 3I/Atlas, in contrast, seemed almost serene in its maneuver, its surface calm under observation. That composure deepened the mystery. If no physical outburst accounted for the redirection, then propulsion must be hidden or operating by principles unfamiliar to our science. The possibility of a sail-like structure invisible or thin beyond our instrument's limits was proposed. Others suggested electromagnetic interaction, yet each explanation fell short, for nothing natural explained the timing or the control. The astronomers tracking it day by day felt the weight of history pressing upon them. To measure something so small yet so significant, to realize it had contradicted the expectations of Newton and Kepler, was both exhilarating and terrifying. They became the first witnesses of a reality long whispered but never confirmed, that the void may not be empty of intelligence, and it had not slipped past unnoticed, it had turned back. That detail alone transforms it from curiosity into confrontation, even if silent. There is a gravity to the symbolism as well as the science. Humanity has often looked outward with wonder, assuming that the stars held secrets to be uncovered at our leisure. The arrival and redirection of 3I/Atlas suggests the opposite, that sometimes the secrets look back. This turn is not just a physical shift, it is a pivot of perspective. It challenges our assumption of solitude, it forces the recognition that the sky may harbor watchers rather than wanderers. That recognition, even before any aftermath unfolds, is enough to alter the course of human thought. The implications extend deeply into philosophy and identity. If this is an object under guidance, it confirms that we are not the sole makers of machines. It forces us to consider that we may be latecomers to a theater already long populated by others. The fear everyone held, now confirmed, is that our first unmistakable evidence came not in the form of a message or a handshake, but in a maneuver. A turn, quiet and precise, carries meaning without words. It says in effect, we are here, and we are capable. That is a revelation of staggering consequence. And so the focus lingers on that turning point in the blackness, when 3I/Atlas shifted its path, and the weight of possibility settled upon all who observed. The world watches the trajectory graphs update, the lines bending against prediction, and feels the tremor of recognition. This is no longer a fleeting traveler passing by. It has returned its gaze. Whatever follows may belong to the future, but for now, the sheer confirmation of the fear is enough. That the universe is not silent drift, but deliberate motion, and we have just witnessed its proof. The moment 3I/Atlas shifted its trajectory, the familiar rules of celestial dynamics were rewritten in the minds of all who observed it. No longer was this a body simply riding the cosmic current of gravity, its fate sealed by the pull of the sun. It demonstrated something far more alarming, a capacity to alter its course against those forces, as if declaring autonomy from the natural laws that guide all other known objects in the heavens. That gesture carried a message even without words, and humanity, though unprepared, was forced to listen. The night skies suddenly became places of unease. For centuries, they had been symbols of constancy, their motions predictable and reassuring. Farmers trusted them, navigators depended upon them, and scientists mapped them with confidence. But now, one point of light had betrayed that expectation, showing itself to be an actor rather than a stage prop. It was as if a statue had turned its head, or a shadow had blinked, something once presumed inert revealing the will to act. The fear this evoked was not born merely from science but from instinct. To see something vast and alien choose to return is to confront the possibility that it is watching, studying, perhaps judging. Astronomers devoted countless hours to capturing every scrap of data. Infrared surveys sought heat signatures, optical telescopes strained for surface details, and radio antennas listened for whispers of transmission. The silence remained unbroken, yet the silence itself spoke. It suggested either sophistication so great that its activities lay beneath the threshold of our instruments or an indifference to communication altogether. Both interpretations unsettled the human imagination. If it was advanced, it had chosen invisibility. If it was indifferent, then we were irrelevant to its mission. Neither prospect was comforting. The psychological weight of the event reached far beyond observatories. Writers, philosophers, and theologians found themselves grappling with new questions. For those who believed humanity occupied a central role in the cosmos, the turn of 3I/Atlas represented a direct challenge. It suggested that intelligence may not only exist elsewhere, but could reach across the gulfs of interstellar space with ease. To others, it raised questions of purpose. Why here? Why now? And why in silence? The object's maneuver became not just an astronomical phenomenon, but a mirror held up to the human condition. The cultural implications unfolded rapidly. In cities, conversations buzzed in cafes and on sidewalks. Social feeds overflowed with speculation, ranging from the sober to the wild. Some saw it as the harbinger of discovery, a long-awaited validation that we are not alone. Others recoiled with dread, interpreting it as a prelude to intrusion, a sign of something monitoring us with unknown intentions. Art, as it always does, began to respond. Painters sought to capture the image of a silent traveler curving back through the dark, and musicians wrote melodies that carried both awe and unease. Humanity had been handed a mystery too profound to ignore. Meanwhile, scientific communities fragmented into camps. One camp clung to natural explanations, proposing exotic but still unintentional mechanisms, perhaps hidden volatile jets, or interactions with magnetic fields we had not considered. Another camp quietly entertained the technological hypothesis, acknowledging that the simplest explanation might be the one we most feared: deliberate control. A third group attempted to bridge the divide, arguing that even if it was technological, it could still be ancient and derelict, no longer an active agent but a relic continuing to obey commands etched into it long ago. This possibility, though less frightening than an active intelligence, still unsettled. A derelict probe implies builders, and builders imply civilizations. The geopolitical ramifications emerged almost immediately. Governments convened urgent sessions, seeking clarity from their scientists, demanding updates in real time. Military planners whispered about contingencies, even though no conceivable weapon could influence something with that trajectory and potential origin. The confirmation that it had turned back was enough to spark classified debates. Was this a scout? Was it harmless? Or was it part of a larger presence we had not yet detected? Information moved reluctantly from the scientific domain into the political, and the resulting tension fueled both secrecy and speculation. Religions, too, wrestled with the implications. Leaders issued statements, some framing the event as a sign or a test, others urging calm reflection. Congregations debated whether this represented the arrival of neighbors in creation, or whether it should be viewed as a challenge to human faith. For some, the confirmation that it had turned back was not fear but validation, a cosmic reminder that humanity's story was not solitary. For others, it was destabilizing, shaking long-held convictions about the uniqueness of our place in the universe. As the days and weeks passed, the object's course became the subject of endless analysis. Where exactly was it heading now? Was the arc precise, aiming for a particular region of the inner system? Each updated orbital calculation became headline material, scrutinized for meaning. Analysts noted that the new trajectory was neither reckless nor random. Its path was efficient, conserving momentum, guiding it with the kind of economy engineers strive for. This elegance suggested deliberation once again, reinforcing the unease. Natural forces are messy, wasteful, chaotic. The turn of 3I/Atlas was anything but. Speculation about its possible technology filled the vacuum left by unanswered questions. Could it be using a form of propulsion invisible to us, such as the manipulation of space-time itself? Was it harnessing solar energy in ways beyond the crude concept of sails? Theorists suggested propulsion systems based on principles of plasma confinement, or manipulation of vacuum energy, or even gravitational steering. Each theory was more speculative than the last, yet all shared a common thread. It was beyond current human reach. To face something that casually executed a maneuver we could not replicate even in theory underscored how far behind we might be. The academic world saw an explosion of papers, conferences, and debates. Journals that once hesitated to publish work hinting at extraterrestrial engineering now faced a flood of submissions. Though many remained cautious, the event legitimized discussions that had long been marginalized. Graduate students found themselves presenting on propulsion methods once confined to science fiction. Professors long silenced by ridicule began to speak with new confidence. The turn of 3I/Atlas cracked open a door in academia that may never close again. Among ordinary people, the response varied between fascination and fear. Amateur astronomers pointed their backyard telescopes skyward, hoping to glimpse the visitor for themselves, each dot of light imbued with new mystery. Families debated whether to feel excitement at the possibility of contact or anxiety about what that contact might entail. Children asked their parents whether aliens were real, their innocence reflecting the larger uncertainty of the world. The fact that the confirmation was so stark, a turn clear and undeniable, meant that no one could simply dismiss it as rumor. It was real, and it demanded reckoning. The media predictably amplified the event to a fever pitch. Some outlets treated it with reverence, highlighting the profound scientific questions it raised. Others sensationalized it, framing it as a looming threat. Documentaries raced into production, while streaming services announced dramatizations. The line between fact and speculation blurred as producers capitalized on public interest. Yet beneath the noise, the raw truth remained. A body from beyond the stars had broken the mold of natural behavior, and no one could explain it away. Science fiction authors found themselves in an unusual position. For decades, they had imagined scenarios of first contact, alien probes, and mysterious visitors. Now, their imaginative landscapes felt strangely prescient. Readers turned to them not only for entertainment, but for frameworks to process the reality unfolding. Stories once dismissed as fanciful now carried eerie weight. The difference was that fiction had the freedom to resolve mysteries. Reality, by contrast, offered only the unresolved tension of an ongoing enigma. The educational sphere also shifted. Classrooms began discussing the event, teachers using it as an opportunity to spark curiosity in astronomy and physics. Students, wide-eyed, asked whether this meant we would soon meet beings from other stars. Curriculum developers updated lessons to include not just historical interstellar visitors, but this new chapter, where one had revealed unpredicted behavior. For young minds, the universe suddenly seemed more alive, less static, and infinitely more compelling. Perhaps the most profound implication lay in the sense of vulnerability. For the first time in modern history, humanity had undeniable evidence that something beyond Earth could act within our system on its own terms. It was not a meteor strike, not an asteroid near miss. Those are natural threats, predictable and manageable. This was something that could decide. The realization that the sky held actors rather than mere objects redefined security itself. Defense was no longer a matter of monitoring human rivals or shielding from nature. It had to consider intelligence beyond our planet. The timing of the event added another layer of weight. In an era already fraught with technological upheaval, climate struggles, and geopolitical tension, the arrival of an object that bent the rules of the cosmos felt almost like a catalyst. It forced nations to reconsider priorities, to weigh whether cooperation might be necessary in the face of a mystery shared by all. Borders seemed suddenly smaller against the vastness of what was unfolding above them. The fear confirmed by the turn was not only of the object itself, but of our inadequacy to face it divided. As days turned into weeks, artists continued to grapple with the symbolism. Murals appeared depicting the object as a lone traveler curving back to gaze upon Earth. Poets wrote verses about being noticed by the stars. Filmmakers storyboarded scenes of silent, majestic crafts drifting with inscrutable intent. Culture absorbed the event in countless forms, reflecting the human impulse to process fear through creativity. In each case, the motif of turning back was central, an act that symbolized awareness, as if the cosmos had pivoted to acknowledge us. Amidst the swirl of speculation and analysis, one truth remained unshaken. Nothing like this had ever happened before. Humanity had cataloged the sky for millennia, charting comets, asteroids, planets, and stars with increasing precision. Not once had an interstellar body behaved in this manner. That uniqueness made it impossible to dismiss. It was a singularity of behavior, a crack in the facade of natural order. From the moment it turned, 3I/Atlas ceased to be merely another name in the catalog of celestial wanderers. It became a symbol of possibility, of fear, of wonder. And so, as the world looked upward, the weight of the moment pressed down. The confirmation was undeniable. The object had not drifted as expected. It had chosen, or something had chosen for it. Humanity, for all its achievements, found itself humbled by a simple turn in the night sky. The implications radiated outward, touching science, politics, art, faith, and everyday life. The cosmos had revealed itself as more active, more mysterious than we had dared to believe. And in that revelation, the quiet fear was confirmed. We are not alone in the vastness, and the vastness has just turned its gaze upon us. The celestial stage had long seemed predictable. The planets swung around the sun in measured harmony, comets returned on schedules that could be forecast centuries in advance, and asteroids followed courses that, while sometimes threatening, could be modeled with remarkable precision. The unexpected turn of 3I/Atlas broke that assurance like glass. It was a rupture in the predictability of the heavens, a reminder that even the seemingly immutable rhythms of the cosmos could conceal surprises that cut deeper than any natural disaster. For the first time, the universe appeared to behave not like an impersonal system, but like an actor with intentions hidden from us. That awareness triggered an immediate transformation in the philosophy of observation. For centuries, astronomy had been largely retrospective, cataloging, predicting, and describing. But the recognition that something in the sky might act with volition demanded a new framework. Observers were not merely catalogers anymore, they were witnesses. They watched for behavior, not just position. Each new measurement became not only a matter of recording coordinates, but of interpreting choices. The very language of science began to stretch to accommodate verbs like decided, chose, or directed, words that once belonged solely to human and animal action. Academia found itself in a storm of interdisciplinary dialogue. Astrophysicists reached out to engineers asking whether propulsion could hide in ways not yet detectable. Engineers reached out to biologists, wondering whether self-repairing mechanisms in living organisms could inform how a machine might operate silently across millennia. Biologists, in turn, looked to anthropologists, asking what kinds of civilizations might build machines and send them out across light years. Each discipline discovered that its boundaries had been breached by a single turn in the dark. The event became not only scientific but civilizational in scope. The ethical discussions soon followed. If 3I/Atlas represented technology, was it right to attempt to signal it? Was silence preferable, or was outreach necessary? A chorus of voices rose on both sides. Advocates for sending messages argued that ignoring the opportunity could mean forfeiting a chance for connection with a greater intelligence. Opponents countered that broadcasting might draw attention in ways that placed humanity at risk. Between those poles stretched a vast spectrum of opinion, each infused with urgency now that the object had confirmed its ability to act. The confirmation also reignited dormant questions about ownership of the sky. Nations debated whether observing, analyzing, or interacting with the object should be an open enterprise or a controlled one. The notion of cosmic territory was absurd in theory, but deeply compelling in practice, as no government wanted to be excluded from potential discoveries or potential threats. International organizations faced pressure to step in, yet their capacity was limited. The event revealed not only the vastness of interstellar mystery, but also the inadequacy of human political frameworks to address something so unprecedented. At the same time, the humanities found themselves unexpectedly central to the conversation. historians reminded the world of earlier moments when humanity confronted the unknown, the first encounters between civilizations across oceans, the shock of discovering new continents, the paradigm shift of Copernican astronomy. In each case, those events had reshaped the trajectory of human culture. The turn of 3I/Atlas, they argued, could be a moment of similar magnitude, a hinge upon which the story of humanity might pivot. Literature scholars analyzed metaphors of watching and being watched, of journeys and returns, finding in myths and epics ancient echoes of the unease now present in the modern world. The psychological community was equally absorbed. Therapists reported that patients brought up the event in sessions, voicing anxieties about safety, relevance, and cosmic vulnerability. People who had never given thought to astronomy suddenly dreamed of alien skies. Some found the possibility exhilarating, interpreting it as an expansion of possibility. Others spiraled into dread, unable to reconcile their daily lives with the looming presence of an interstellar enigma. Clinical studies began documenting what was called cosmic anxiety, a form of existential stress rooted in the fear of being observed by something utterly beyond comprehension. Meanwhile, new questions arose about time. If the object was indeed a probe, when had it been launched? Was it ancient, crossing the interstellar gulfs for longer than human civilization had existed? If so, then its builders may no longer even exist, their creation persisting as their silent legacy. Or was it recent, evidence that intelligence elsewhere was active now, not in some distant epoch? Each possibility carried different weight. An ancient probe suggested we lived in the wake of civilizations long gone. A recent one implied contemporaries, beings alive at this very moment who had chosen to reach across space. Technologists looked upward with envy and humility. The turn of 3I/Atlas underscored how small human achievements in propulsion and exploration truly were. Despite decades of effort, humanity had only managed to send a handful of probes to the outer fringes of the solar system. To see something from beyond execute a maneuver with elegance we could not yet replicate was humbling. Engineers studied every scrap of data, hoping for hints that could guide future innovations. The irony was sharp. The object that turned back may well accelerate our own attempts to reach the stars. Artists continued to find new ways of rendering the mystery. Sculptors built forms that curved back upon themselves, embodying the motion of a traveler who refuses to leave. Playwrights staged productions about silent visitors, their presence felt in every scene even without a word spoken. Musicians layered notes that rose outward only to fold back in, echoing the return path of the interstellar wanderer. In each medium, the act of turning back became a symbol of attention, of recognition, of something larger bending its course to intersect with ours. The impact on religious practice deepened as time passed. Pilgrimages formed to observatories where people prayed beneath telescopes aimed at the sky. Rituals incorporated references to visitors, to turning points, to the watching heavens. Preachers spoke of humility before the vastness, of the possibility that humanity had been noticed. For some traditions, the confirmation was a validation of long-held beliefs in cosmic plurality. For others, it was a destabilizing force, demanding reinterpretation of sacred texts. Faith communities split, merged, and reformed, all under the shadow of an object whose silence carried the weight of scripture. Economists, too, entered the discourse. If this was a probe, did it represent potential technology to be studied, replicated, even exploited? The possibility of gleaning insight from its design became a hypothetical future industry. Companies speculated about the material composition, wondering whether alloys or mechanisms beyond our understanding might be present. Markets reacted with volatility, prices shifting based on rumor and speculation about what 3I/Atlas might represent. The simple confirmation of its turn rippled through financial systems, proof that even the most distant movements in the cosmos could shake the foundations of trade and investment. The educational world experienced transformation. Universities created new courses on interstellar studies, blending astrophysics with anthropology, engineering with philosophy. Students flocked to them, hungry to participate in what felt like a new era of human history. High schools added lessons on the event, teaching not just the mechanics of orbits, but the broader cultural shockwaves. Young people began to speak of careers not only in space science, but in cosmic diplomacy, imagining futures where communication with the unknown might become a discipline in itself. Within scientific institutions, the event forced a redefinition of what constituted evidence. For decades, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence had focused on signals, on listening for broadcasts across the stars. The turn of 3I/Atlas demonstrated that action itself could be a form of communication. A maneuver against prediction was as loud a declaration as any radio transmission. SETI researchers began expanding their parameters, considering behavioral anomalies as valid data points in the search for intelligence. The shift marked a philosophical evolution. The universe might speak not in words but in motions. The event also illuminated human fragility in a new way. Natural disasters, pandemics, and wars had long reminded us of our vulnerability, but all of those were familiar, earthbound. The sudden realization that something beyond Earth could choose to act within our system introduced an entirely new dimension of fragility. For the first time, survival seemed contingent not only on our own actions or natural forces, but on the will of something alien. That awareness was sobering, even paralyzing, for those who allowed its implications to sink fully into their consciousness. At the same time, the possibility of kinship shimmered just beyond the fear. If 3I/Atlas was indeed a product of intelligence, then somewhere, at some time, beings had looked at the stars with curiosity just as we do. They had built, they had launched, they had ventured outward. The recognition of that parallel stirred a deep resonance. It suggested that the impulse to explore was not uniquely human but perhaps universal. To imagine others who shared our drive to reach beyond home worlds was to feel less alone in the great expanse, even if their silence now left us uncertain. The more humanity reflected on the event, the clearer it became that the turn of 3I/Atlas would become a historical marker. Just as eras are defined by discoveries, the telescope, the printing press, the splitting of the atom, so too would this event define an epoch. Future generations would likely look back and say that here was the moment when humanity first saw undeniable evidence that the universe contained more than inert matter. The confirmation of its turn was not only an astronomical fact, but a cultural inflection point, reshaping identity on a planetary scale. And yet, through all the debates, speculations, and interpretations, one truth remained haunting. 3I/Atlas had offered no explanation. Its silence persisted, unbroken, leaving only its action as communication. That silence amplified every fear and every hope. For in the absence of answers, humanity filled the void with imagination. It became a canvas for projection, a mirror reflecting both our greatest aspirations and our deepest insecurities. It forced us to confront not only what might be out there, but what we are within ourselves. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us. What are your thoughts on 3I/Atlas turning back unexpectedly? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.